On this episode of the Fit Rockstar Show, we have with us the sensational, mind-blowing thigh, the strongest thighs in the world, according to Stan Lee, the best, Kortney Olson. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel like I should drop my drawers and jump up on the table.
I want you to drop your drawers and jump on the table. I mean, I just got a quick shot of your ass out there in the break room.
You never know what's going to happen, eh?
I was walking in thinking I'm getting a cup of coffee. Instead, I got the moon looking at me. By the way,
someone's got to keep you on your toes.
You have the most prettiest ass I've ever seen.
Oh my God, that's a huge compliment.
Are we going to do this again after? Can you drop your drawers?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's like, you know, when you have an insecurity as a woman or as a woman, and you think like, my ass is my weakest point because it's just it's wide, but it's slightly flat. You know, because my hips tilt under. And then you get a compliment from another woman, and it's like, did we just become best friends? I feel like we did. Yeah.
I think women have a lot of people in general have a lot of insecurities, don't you think?
Absolutely. Everybody's wearing a mask.
Yes, they are. And how about the ones on social media who pretend to be like, I'm so happy, I'm so perfect?
It's old.
Yeah.
That shit's old.
It is old.
Can we cuss on here?
You can do whatever you want.
Uh-oh. Don't threaten me with a good time.
No, I'm just do whatever you want to do.
I love it.
I'm very inspired by you.
Thank you.
You're very empowering to women and people in general, and I want to know your story. I want to know, how did you get to be this incredible, empowering woman? Of course, you have the clothing line, Grrrl Clothing. You've done a lot of amazing things, and you're still a young chicken, young woman, so you still have a whole ways to go. Can you give our viewers actually, let's start in the beginning. Where are you from?
Mars, or is it Venus? Where do women come from?
Venus?
Yeah, that part.
Venus.
I'm from a small town in BFE called Garberville.
BFE?
Bumfuck Egypt.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's politically correct anymore. I don't know what I can and can't say, but...
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, good. Love it. My people. Yeah, it's funny because I appreciate the era that we're in and realizing that, you know, things are changing and evolving and we're going to screw up along the way. So, I mean, I guess that's probably why I got humility tattooed on my arm. But once you tattoo that on your arm, you're not really being humble, I guess, I've been told. So,
really?
Yeah, it's like, look at me, I'm humble. But it was early days of getting sober. So, but yeah, a little tiny town called Garberville. And it's got like a love connection going on here. Must be my new hair.
It's everything.
Yeah, same. So yes, Northern California, and I grew up very much a tomboy, and I think that's why I am as well-rounded as I am. You know, and it still feels awkward to say good things about yourself. You know, because I can imagine we're similar in age, right? We're brought up in a
25.
Yeah, that's it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
40.
Yeah.
We were brought up to not acknowledge that stuff. If someone gave you a compliment, you know, you don't say thank you, or you say, oh no, stop it, because otherwise you're being a snob, you're being stuck up, right? Whereas men, it's like, yeah, that's me, you know, like they're seen as being leaders, and we're seen as being bossy when it comes to being assertive and that kind of a thing. So, but yeah, I think that it contributed to being well-rounded, is growing up in the country. You know, I was the only girl on like a T-ball team with 70 boys, and riding four-wheelers and having tree forts and breaking bones and getting dirty. And so, you know, I'm very much one of the boys, you know, but at the same time, really...
No Barbies then?
I had some Barbies.
You did have Barbies.
I did some weird shit with Barbies.
Me too.
You know?
Now, do tell, what did you do to your Barbies?
Oh,
did you like trim their hair?
I mean, they were having sex parties. I was quite young. I'm a Scorpio, so, you know, that's this. I'll tell you a funny story. This tattoo right here.
She's taking it off.
I know, we're getting started early. I got that. I was up for 2 weeks, and I was in a blackout, basically, and I'd been awake for 2 weeks, and I thought, because I have the six-pack, and I'm like...
awake for 2 weeks?
Yeah. And I was like, I don't want some crying, sniveling little diaper genie baby to come along and ruin my six-pack. So I'm going to get my Scorpio sign tattooed right there, and then that way, if I ever get pregnant, it'll turn into a lobster. You can't have that, right? It's worked so far.
Yeah.
It's worked so far, but yeah,
clash.
Us Scorpios have got some weird sexual energy.
They
so.
do. So are you in late October or early November?
Early November.
Okay.
November 9th. So I just turned 40. So,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
happy belated birthday.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful belated birthday present. So.
I'm on the cusp, so I'm kind of a Libra Scorpio.
Are you?
Right there.
Yeah, you're right in the middle. Nice.
Right in the middle, baby.
Yeah.
That's where it needs to be. So
Yeah.
how did you so you never competed, right?
Yeah, I've
You did
competed.
compete.
I've competed a handful of times. I never took it very far because I've always was lower half dominant. And in 2014, I actually went and got my boobs done because I was like, all right, I'm going to get serious about this. I really want to chase this. I want to get to the Olympia. And then my last show that I did, I had decided to try physique. And I mean, I was just stacked. I was just like 173 pounds of just stacked, just a big stack of pancakes. Just
Muscles.
yeah. And one of the photographers had overheard in one of their judges' meetings the night before with the IFBB that anybody who is too muscular to mark them down to the lowest, because that's
What
not.
year was this?
2015.
Jeez.
Yeah, out in Australia. So after that experience, I mean, I trained really hard for like 9 months for that show, and then
This is in Australia.
This was in Australia. And so to not make that first call out when there were like women getting called out ahead of me that didn't even have visible abs, I was like threw up 2 middle fingers in the air and I was like,
because
I'm
your
out.
Physique, right?
Yeah. And then I was never, quite big enough to be in bodybuilding, even though, I wasn't at that point willing to do what it would take, because then also too, as an addict, like once I start, I can't stop. Like, don't give me a can of Pringles. I'll just shove the whole thing like somewhere. Just get it in me,
Don't shove it up your ass, please. Don't do that. There are people who have done.
I can imagine.
Listen, I'll talk real quick. I've heard that people, when they want to get drunk real quick, they take a tampon, put it in liquor, and then shove it up their ass.
No.
To get that quick.
Kidding.
buzz. Yeah.
Is that called boofing?
Is that what it is?
I think so.
But they don't want to get the alcohol in the breath, so they put it up their keister.
No way.
And even like supplements, you can stick it up your.
Right. I was just listening to something about, boofing, but there was pills, but I didn't know about the tampon.
Yeah, they put tampon and alcohol.
See, that's how you know when you're an alcoholic, because I'm like,
Are you saying
damn.
I'm an alcoholic?
No,
How did I
me.
know?
I'm over here like, why didn't I think of that? That's a damn good idea.
Now you're sober.
I am sober.
Tell me this story. How did you? I feel bad
Yeah.
having my.
No, girl, not at all, not at all. Because after the first year was really difficult, So my mom's an alcoholic, and growing up, it used to scare the shit out of me. 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, she'd crack a King Cobra or a bottle of wine, and Bombay gin, and I knew what was about to come, And growing up with an alcoholic parent, a lot of us discount what that does to us as kids, because from ages 0 to 7, sometimes up to 8, we're not fully conscious. So we see everything as good or bad, right or wrong, black or white. There's no gray area, right? So we create a majority of our limiting beliefs during that time frame, and it goes on a subconscious level, and then we run off that program for the rest of our life. Like, this is kind of random, but I'll give you an example. Do you have a sibling?
I do.
Older, younger?
Younger.
Okay, great. How much?
15 years younger.
Okay, well, let's pretend. Let's say
I love playing pretend.
I know, me too. Let's say she's 1 and you're 4, and you're learning to tie your shoe for the first time, and your mom's in the kitchen cutting up an apple, and your sister is standing up in her high chair dicking around. She's about to fall out of it. And you call out to your mom, "Mom, help, I can't tie my shoe." And she looks at you and she says, "Hold on, I'll be right there." And she runs over to your sister. In that moment, what's the potential belief that you've just created about yourself?
That I wasn't important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fucking exactly right. Your sister's more important than you.
Right.
And is that the truth? Obviously not. Your mom just didn't want a giant ass hospital bill with a head cracked open.
Right.
Right?
Or worse.
Dead. Yeah, exactly. But the screwed up thing is she's unaware that you created that belief. You're unaware of it. It's planted in your subconscious. And 20 years later, when you see your sister at your grandma's house for Christmas, you want to punch her in the face and you don't know why.
Right.
Right. And that's just one. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of these, layer upon layer upon layer. So through our youth, we create a majority of these limiting beliefs, and then we're not consciously aware of them, right? And so I legit walked straight into my mom's shoes, even though she used to scare the living shit out of me, right? So when I got to junior high, I started counting calories because that was something I could control, not realizing that this addiction was starting to become a thing. Sure. And then also my body image issues started. I came across Kate Moss, and I remember you probably remember, right? It was the black and white. Yeah, the Obsession ad. She had one foot cocked up on the other leg. She looked like a flamingo, and her collarbones were sticking out. And I was like, that's beauty. Like it was a magazine. My mom was in the tanning bed, and I was like 8 looking at it, and I'm like, I'm going to look like her. And I mean, her leg was the size of my forearm. Even as a young kid, I was thick. I was hefty.
Well, that's when
husky.
The wave thing came out.
Right.
With the
90s,
Yeah.
So I chased that. And then by the time I got to high school, I developed eating disorders. And then my senior year of high school, I found speed. And I was the associate student body president, captain of the cheerleading team, started the first girls golf team, was in a Christian rock band at a private Catholic high school, and was looking at a full ride to Stanford. And instead, I ended up doing methamphetamines with some friends and a stepsister. And it was like I found the Holy Grail.
People always ask how I got here. I was willing to work just a little harder than everyone else. Every damn day. If I can have hundreds of hours back, I'm gonna grab them. Spending hours prepping chicken, rice, and vegetables, F that. I rely on perfect nutrition. I rely on trifecta.
And then from there, it just turned into a super downward spiral of events. Like a drug counselor linked me up with a boxing instructor who was supposed to be like a mentor to me. And I had 3 days clean. And he said, yeah, come out to my house. I want to, make you my last prize fighter before I retire. And this guy was 72 and I was 17. Like I just turned 17. And I got to his house and he had a cup full of cognac and a joint. And I never really smoked at that point. Yep. Boy. Got in there and didn't listen to my instincts. I knew my stomach knotted up. Like I knew something wasn't right. But as you grow up with somebody who doesn't give you the attention you need, you're going to seek it from other people. Correct. Right? Mm. So I was like, oh, I'm going to be a prize fighter. And that's why I got KO tattooed right here, which is, I've gone over now with a tattoo that kind of looks like Prince.
Right. Yeah.
Could be David Bowie.
Right.
Could be me. Some people ask, is that you? I'm like, yeah, right. That's me.
Use your imagination.
Yeah, that's it. So anyway, this guy had basically drugged me, and I woke up with him inside of me. And it was from that point moving forward, just a downward spiral for like 9 years. And then getting into bodybuilding was essentially how I got out of drugs. I mean, initially, right? So I found bodybuilding, and that was my first like new addiction, if you will, and essentially replaced one with the other. But then I hurt my back wrestling, and then I got hooked on pain pills.
Oh, girl.
My name was on the bottle, right?
Right.
Because us addicts, we can justify anything until the cows come home. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, well, you would do this too if you had my life, and it's their fault. And we can justify and make up any story in our head and make it make sense. So I did that for a couple of years. And in fact, the first show that I did, the Contra Costa Pro or whatever it's called, I was still taking Oxycontin. In the end, I was taking Oxycontin. And, that's kind of a big part in what I talk about today. It's like so many of us on the outside, we look really well put together, but on the inside, it's a completely different story.
We're all battling things nobody knows anything about.
That's right. That's right. But I feel like the bodybuilding community is gotten a lot better at coming together and supporting each other as opposed to tearing each other down, especially with like ever since Wings of Strength have come out. Oh, yeah. And it's just like a mecca and a symbol of unity. At least from what I see from afar and not being a part of the inner circle, I see it and I'm like, cool, this is an organization that's come through to show support, and people who come along with it bring that same level of energy. At least that's what radiates from social media.
Definitely a thing of unity, but now in our bodybuilding world, as you may know, we're dealing with a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah.
So, and of course, this is a big addiction, bodybuilding. People feel, okay, I got to look like this. I got to, do whatever it takes to get to this point, and sometimes may get them death.
Yep.
Or in the hospital, or just never compete again.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of depressing things. But I am the same like you. I grew up with an alcoholic family.
Yeah.
And it was horrible because, I never talk about this, but I will now because we can relate.
Proud of you.
But listen, I was abused for anything. It didn't matter what I did. One of my family members would just constantly come in and just beat the shit out of me.
Damn.
But you have to be strong. And as a little girl, you're growing up. I'm 7 or 8 years old.
Right.
I don't know any better.
Right.
You just don't. I mean, I kind of lived in fear, but then part of me, as I got older, it was starting to make me very sour, very hateful. And I'm like, you know what? I can't do this.
Yeah.
I got to be strong. But I didn't know any better.
Isn't that wild? I find a lot of us have had some form of trauma, and that's what really pushes us. Like it takes a real particular person to do what we do. And I mean, and I say we, and I'm not even quite to that level. I mean, the discipline and the drive and the obsession and the determination.
When did you put your foot down though, and with the the Oxycontin and all this stuff, and say, you know what, I'm done?
Yeah. It's a good question. I had attempted when I was 21, so it was like 9 days of the legal drinking age. Like I had a fake ID for the longest time. I was like, I have a problem.
It was McLovin, right? A McMuffin kind of ID.
Yeah, one of those for sure. She didn't look a thing like me either. It was absurd. But it was like 8 days in, and I had talked to my family doctor, and we had a little cry together. This is the most heroic thing I've seen from a 21-year-old. Like, anyway, it's not heroic, but I went off to rehab and had 90 days clean and sober. And then I remember my cousin was like, "Oh, I think she deserves a glass of wine. She's been doing really well."
Boy.
And not realizing, even though I just spent 21 days in the hospital, because they call it a spin dry. You go, you clean up or sober up, but until you actually do the work and work the steps, there's a lot of different ways in recovery nowadays too. But for me, I'm old fashioned. I did, the 12-step recovery program. And, but at any rate, I didn't realize you just replacing one thing with another, So, I went off and running again, and then that turned out just to be drinking. And then I brought meth back in, so I was drinking and doing meth.
Oh my gosh!
And then I turned into I had a lowrider, sawed-off shotgun, was selling drugs. I mean, just ridiculous actions. And that went on for another 8 years. And then I had 4 felonies hanging over my head. Right? That's why I'm like, you can never judge a person by what they're doing. There's people out on the street, and I'm sure people drive by and they're like, piece of shit, worthless drug addict. It's like, no, it's probably a veteran who has PTSD and has no coping mechanisms, whereas somebody like me, I, on the outside, looked really well put together, and I had all the privilege in front of me in the world, came from a white working class background family, and still managed to stray off the path because I was so desperate to be thin. But the final straw was, I'd been lifting and then started taking the pain pills, and I managed that okay for the first year and a half. It increased slowly, but in the last 6 months when I found Oxy, boom, it was straight away $80 a day habit. And but what got me was a spiritual rock bottom. I'm like, how? I mean, I'm making amazing money, right? Doing what I was doing on the side, crushing watermelons and all that kind of stuff, arm wrestling dudes and making bank. But I was just so empty. I'm like, because nothing was ever good enough.
When you say empty,
yeah,
what does that mean? You feel okay, I'm not really satisfied. There's still more. There's just,
empty as in I was, and I didn't realize it at the time, but because, bodybuilding can be, you got to be self-centered. You got to be self-centered because, you put so much work into it, right? And it was so great to see what was offered at this last show. I'm like, fuck, finally, something to compete for, some real value. How exciting. That Corvette was sick. I was like, fuck yeah. Because otherwise, like one of the last shows I did, it was like Best Poser Award, and I got some fucking expired protein and some other random shit. I was like, damn, those thousands of dollars you put into it. And so, but the emptiness really, it's like, you're so focused on yourself constantly. And in recovery, you are one of our main principles is being of service, because I forget how bad it got, right? So even 12 years without a drink, and I mean, I'll have 12 years clean on June 14th, but God willing.
12 years clean.
Yeah, 12 years clean and sober.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I was, real quick, I was in I was at a bodybuilding show earlier this year in Orlando, and they had the anonymous, I forgot what it's called, but one of the people, the longest one was 61 years.
Wow.
Sober?
Yeah.
61 years?
Yeah. That's wild. I know.
I'm like, huh?
It's absurd.
61. I was like, I couldn't believe that.
I know. This is when
but
you know.
all these people were so cool.
Yeah.
Down to earth, and they're trying to better their lives.
Yeah. And that's what's the great message about it. It's like, even when you get clean and sober, you still, at first, you feel quite awkward because you have to reinvent yourself essentially, and you're full of fear, and which is weird because you'd look at me and you'd be like, you'd be full of fear. It's like, oh yeah, oh God, and I was so insecure because the surface level thing that was my problem was my body image, right? But when you drill down into it, it's childhood neglect, which sounds horrible, and then of course there was some molestation in there, and just stuff we experience as kids, and we're not taught how to cut that off and say, okay, I'm no longer going to be a victim and identify with that. I'm going to become a victor and use this to turn my mess into a message and do something different about it. And I guess that was the hardest thing, was really being like, okay, because the last show, it's like you're doing cardio twice a day, you're meal prepping, you're buying supplements, you're posing, you're lifting, like it takes up your entire day.
Yes.
And so there was no time in there to be like, all right, how can I be of service to someone else? And I think that was, the thing that I was missing. And so I hit that spiritual rock bottom where I'm like, I'm not doing anything. And I'm one of those, I say I'm a recovering people pleaser, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Cause I guess there's four things that drive people. You've got the people who got to win, right? Like the Donald Trumps. You got people who are into philanthropy and science and so forth. You got people who are driven by fun. They got to have fun. Yes. I see that in you. And then,
is that a good thing or bad
it's
thing?
A great thing. Okay. And then you got people like myself who are driven by service, and are live to serve other people. And sometimes, you got to question your motives and be like, am I doing this because my ego wants to be like, oh, good job, and make more friends. Like I get so...
Well, see, I feel like I live the service because that's my biggest flaw, is I'm constantly putting other people ahead of myself, because it makes me more important. It makes me happy to see someone else successful and to see them happy.
That's...
Fuck myself.
Yeah.
And that's wrong.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like that, right?
It's a double-edged sword, right? And everything is. That whole yin-yang shit, they had something figured out there, right? Because you're right. But again, on the other hand, it's the whole put your oxygen mask on first, because if you're not alive, you can't help anybody else.
That is true.
But
good point.
Yeah. So, and that's all we're here to do, right? Is just learn and figure it out. But the fact that you have self-awareness around that is a big deal, because that's what I think is missing for a lot of people, is they don't have self-awareness. We just get up, we get on our phone, we get into autopilot, we go into that subconscious where we are 95% of the day. Mm-hmm. And that's where all of our limiting beliefs are. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're blinking your eyes and you're shaking your head. You don't have to think about that shit. That's all autonomic programming. But so is that stuff from like getting hit as a kid, or, I don't want to rock the boat, or I want to help, but you're way ahead of the battle because you have an awareness around it, whereas most people do not. They're just autopilot. So
it's hard, though, I'll tell you what. But with body image, which is a big thing again in our sport, because we're got to go on stage or the bikini or just trying to be fit, we feel like we should be a certain way, certain look.
Totally.
So I applaud you, because you're like, fuck it, here I am. This is me.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
Some people, I'm not going to, I don't want anybody looking at my ass.
I perved out on your Instagram. I'm just going to let you know. You might as well just walk around naked. Nobody's good.
Well,
we're all rooting for you.
Well, that won't be happening anytime soon,
but I feel you. I absolutely feel you.
I mean, especially now with all the filters, people are filtering out everything. I mean, come on.
Mate, it's so bad. And it's, I think that was probably the biggest thing for me too was making that decision. And this was when like Snapchat came out. So I had started running just to back up. And you just go like this when it's time to wrap it up. Cause this is, I love telling this story. I had moved out to Australia, met my husband, and I told him, I'm like, I want to speak to women. I want women to know that there's a whole world out there of men who love strong, muscular women, himself included, And, I planted that seed, and then he ended up getting a job as like the CEO of a national rugby team. It's equivalent to like our Raiders or 49ers. You can tell I'm from California. And I came on as the assistant strength training coach for the under 20 team as a volunteer, mind you. And this reporter did some digging around the internet and found my last name was different and found I had like a clip store. It was just me smashing watermelons, arm wrestling, nothing I wouldn't want my grandma to see. And then, of course, I had done one shoot with somebody who I'm not going to name drop because they can burn in hell, because I asked them kindly to take the photos down when I was working with teenage girls, and they told me no. I was like, y'all are pieces of shit. But anyway, I'm going to spare your name. So
we know that there are people like, we'll go into that in a little bit. But
zero fucks to give they had. So, but anyway, the reporter, found this content and wrote a headline that was basically CEO hires ex-fetish porn star wife to train the under 20s. And the day before this happened, I applied with Big Brother, Big Sister because I wanted to mentor teenage girls, right? Because I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing from the time when I thought, I'm supposed to be a world champion boxer. And that's why I threw away all my, credentials as my senior year. I'm supposed to warn teenage girls, like, don't do drugs, and you don't need to be skinny. And then, of course, the sexual assault happened and that all went out the window. But deep down, I knew that was still something I wanted to do. And so I'd apply with Big Brother, Big Sister. Story comes out. And I mean, it turned into a heyday. And I had just watched a documentary, and I highly recommend you watch it if you get a chance. It's called Killing Us Softly by Jean Kilbourne. And she's been having it since, she's been doing the same talk since the 70s. She cuts out articles of how women are portrayed in the media, right? And in newspapers and magazines, and women's heads are like turned into fucking rugs, and the dude's stepping on the head. Oh yeah. We've come a long way. But this is scientific. It sounds like some hardcore feminist stuff, and I don't even identify with that label, to be frank. Right. I just see us all as, whatever. That's a whole nother conversation. But as soon as you turn a woman's body into a machine or an inanimate object, that's the next step towards violence against women, right?
Yes.
And so she's been having these talks, and I just watched the documentary, and sure as shit, this one story got syndicated around the world. I had people in Denmark sending me pictures of the newspaper, and there I am flexing. Can't read a word of it, but the word porn star. And I'm like, how is this news?
Wow.
This isn't news. And a year prior, an all blacks rugby player from, it's a different rugby league, but he married a proper porn star. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing, right?
Right.
And the country was high-fiving him, like, way to go, son, well done. But as soon as it's a woman, and he drug up my past, like I had been, sexually assaulted, I was a drug addict, an alcoholic. I would think I was 6 years clean and sober. Or no, it might have been like 3 or 4, because this was 2012. Yeah, it was early days. I was only a couple of years at that point. And just portrayed me to be the biggest piece of shit. I mean, and the way they took pictures off my Facebook and positioned them in such a way. They had a headline called 50 Shades of May, because my husband's last name is May instead of Gray. Yeah, so, and then I am on the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald with a little tiny box over my tits. And this went on for a month, right? And so I'd forgot about the application. Big Brother, Big Sister called me after Australia opens back up, because they shut down for like a month for Christmas, how we should do it. But anyway, they said, hey, we got your application. We're really sorry. Unfortunately, because of the media, we can't work with you. And it was at that point that I was like, I'm a piece of shit. Like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? That's all I wanted to do. And I did. I sat there and sobbed for like 15 minutes, just a guttural, pathetic, howling sob. And then all of a sudden, it was like the word no flashed across my mind. And I say God shot, but I know a lot of us are like, God. I just think of that as like Mother Nature or good orderly direction, said no. And I was like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to run a program ran by people who've been there and done that and not just talked about it, but have actually walked that path. And so I did for 9 months, created a program for teenage girls to teach them all the stuff I wish you and I were taught in school, like the 4 agreements, you know, how to be fucking happy, nutrition, fitness, self-defense, meditation, vision boards, assertiveness. Like look a motherfucker in the eye and say no and feel good about it.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
No. That's a whole sentence. You know? And that took me years to be able to do that.
To say no?
It just, to say no and like not feel like, oh, well, you go to the store and practice. Would you like to sign up for
No.
that's right. Save the Children Fund? Nope. No, actually, I'm a small business owner and times are real tough. Nope. Just no, you know? So we did that for 2 years and then it was amazing. And these girls are cutting themselves, like self-harm's huge epidemic out there, right? And it boils down to social media. You said the filters, and that's where I'm like, that's when Snapchat came out. And I'm like, y'all don't understand. Then there's no long-term studies to show, like, look how fucked up we were from just magazines and billboards, you know, basic advertising, TV. But now it's here in your hand 24/7 in front of your face, and you can't decipher what's real and what's not.
Correct.
You know?
Right.
And now we have access to surgeries.
Yeah. Which is a joke.
Girl, I'm like, you did not squat for that ass. I'm not going to say anything
Right.
because hashtag not your competition, but that is not your booty.
Hashtag not your competition. Well, some of these
So-
girls are outrageous with the asses and the lips. And
Yeah.
I mean, I saw one girl with a pair of lips that looked like a baboon's ass.
I'm like, damn, I mean, you're gorgeous. What's up?
Yeah.
We're not all supposed to look the same.
No.
You know, I don't know, but so it's
You diet down, train hard, and supplement smart for months. When the time comes to step on stage, don't leave your tan to chance. Go with the pros. Pro Tan. #1 worldwide since 1987 and the official sponsor of the Olympia for the last 15 years. Don't step on stage without it. Pro Tan.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So with Grrrl, we took the same vision and mission from that program for teenage girls and rolled it into that and just said, hey, you know what? We're here to be more than just what our bodies are and to focus on what they do as opposed to what they look like. And even we've been doing it for 6 years, and it literally wasn't until 2019. Like I had just had my implants taken out, and this is why I stopped competing, is because I got Graves' disease. And now whether or not that came from the implants, I don't know. I have a sinking suspicion they did. I still have silicone underneath my armpit.
Oh, wow.
And they came out fully intact, right? So, I mean, I'm usually sit at about 180, 185 pounds, and I'm like 165, 168 now. Yeah. So I take an anti-thyroid medication, and I always sound congested, and, it really knocked me about. But I'm still like, all right, well, maybe I'll make a comeback in the Masters division one day.
Masters.
So-
Listen, it doesn't matter what division. If you came back to the stage, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You would have such a big fan base.
Yeah, just for fun, Just
for fun, absolutely.
Yeah.
See, this is what it's about,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about having fun.
That's right.
Some
And
people just constantly live in that competition,
Yeah.
competitive state.
And that was me. Like I couldn't. And now, to where I've matured to, I could do it and do it for fun. But I think that's also because I have a purpose now that's, aligned with specific things, and I've done some more things. But as a younger person, when I was doing this stuff, you still, in my experience, it's like the number one source of depression is not knowing what you're meant to be doing with your life, and you.
Amen, sister.
You know what I
Yes,
mean?
that
Like,
is very true.
Do you have one of those
Right.
friends that came out of the womb and they were like, I'm going to be a dental hygienist?
What are you,
Great.
Rudolph. What's that?
Yeah, you go
You're gonna be
do
a
that.
dentist. Yeah.
So, you're competing and you're like, is this what I'm meant to be doing? But you don't really make a lot of money doing it. This was before Wings of Strength was even a
Sure.
thing, so it,
I mean, look, let's be real. There is no,
right,
unless you're doing sponsorships and things like that, there's
Right.
really no,
right. And women got a long way to go
Yes.
to catch up all around the board.
yeah.
And that's even becoming more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely. It was a big source of depression, and then, being obsessive compulsive to a certain degree. I'd walk around and I'd be like feeling my abs throughout the day, or you decide to have some frozen yogurt. Oh shit, I put too many sliced almonds on there. Oh my God. And then you're in your head all day. Right. I'll get up and I'll do an extra 20 minutes of cardio, or, and you're like, I have no real solid memories of having fun and being in the moment because I was constantly in my head about not being good enough and not looking good enough. Now it's completely different. I mean, now I'm just in my head tripping balls on money, business debt, you know what I mean? But it's way better. And it just kind of happened one day. I just got my fake tits taken out. I was kind of healing. And I just caught myself, because my bugbear for me are my knees. I get it from my mom. I don't have a VMO. And I've always wanted that. I see it on you girls. I'm like, damn, that's sexy. I want that. But I got caught cheating on a boyfriend, and I kicked the wall barefoot drunk when I was in college. And so I gave myself this gnarly bunion. So I walk on the outsides of my feet. Oh, foot placement, so important, right? So I did this for like 10 years. So I could never really develop that. But I caught myself in the mirror, and normally that would throw off my entire day. My entire day. I mean, there were days where like I wouldn't leave the house because I was a fat, disgusting piece of shit.
Or you felt like that.
It felt like that. Yeah.
You weren't.
That part.
But you just felt like that.
That part. Yeah.
Did you have anybody close to you that was like, Kortney, what the fuck are you thinking?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I drugged my ex-boyfriend through it. And even at the beginning of my marriage, this man would tear up in the morning sometimes and be like, God, you're just so beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I had like 4 pieces of pizza last night. I gotta go to the gym, bro, later.
Right.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. So, but now understanding, because I've done a fair bit of like subconscious psychology work, and I'm a Psych K facilitator, which is a way which I'll do a session with you if you ever want to. I'd do anything for you, but whatever. But it accesses, it's like NLP, the stuff Tony Robbins does, but NLP on steroids. But you are able to access those subconscious limiting beliefs and rewrite the program, because all this is a computer. I remember back in the day when we used to have to install antivirus software, and then you'd have to uninstall it. Yes. Same shit. It's like you just install programs that are there to benefit you as opposed to limiting ones. So
I feel that the cell phones don't really help.
No.
Makes it worse.
And it's task distraction. It takes us out of the moment. And then like
obsessive with...
And I feel like I am somewhat enlightened, and I've got a fair bit of self-awareness. I'm on Instagram for 5 minutes, and I'm like, and as a matter of fact, I remember I was watching one of your videos, and I was like, damn, I need that vascularity. How am I going to, and then all of a sudden I was like trailing off on a thought of, and then all of a sudden you go through another 20 posts, and then you're like, why am I in such a bad mood? Oh, everyone looks so happy, and
but are they?
No, because I guarantee when that woman puts the camera's put down and that baby starts crying and you've got to change its diaper for the 3rd time in an hour, nobody's trying to do that. No. I'm like, oh, maybe I do want a kid. Maybe I shouldn't have got that stupid tattoo, right? But no, I'm good. I ain't trying to run from zombie apocalypse with a 1-year-old on my back. You know what I'm saying? Throw that thing like a football. You catch. Your turn.
Aw.
Just kidding.
You're mean. I love your zest for life.
Thank you.
Of everything that you've went through, it's really empowered you.
Yeah.
And again, this is why I wanted to have you on, because you're such a great role model for people. Because
appreciate that.
A lot of us feel like we're alone.
Yeah. And
I say a lot of us because, of course, I've been through a lot of similar stuff, and it's not easy. It's hard.
And I'm proud of you for sharing it, because that's the part that gives you empowerment. And by identifying with someone else. So, for example, right now, I'm only 40, but perimenopause is a real thing, right?
Yeah, so like, tell me about this perimenopause.
Oh God, 2 weeks out of the month, like forget about it. I stopped sleeping. And the whole acronym, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, those are our 4 basic needs. So you constantly check those. Mine is not hunger, as tiredness. I can deal with anger, I can deal with loneliness, I can deal with hunger, but if I'm tired, forget about it. And I'm like, how was I a tweaker? How did that, you know what I'm saying? Like, right. And how did I keep all my teeth is the other question that keeps me up at night. But, you know, that tiredness. And where was I going with that? I don't even remember. Well, there was a whole acronym, Zest for Life.
So you had a zest for life and, you know, just how you...
I don't know how I got off on that tangent. Hashtag don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do drugs.
You burn all your brain cells and you can't remember shit.
No, but I mean, listen, like I said, I have been through a lot of similar
Sharing
things.
your story.
Yeah.
It's important in being able to identify. And then we got on to perimenopause and not sleeping. So when another woman is like, oh, that happens to me, I've tried this, but just hearing that somebody else is going through it, it makes you feel, like you said, you're not alone. And you're like, oh, thank God, because you feel like you're the only person that has this issue, and you're not. And then all of a sudden you're amongst a community, and that's where we thrive. And it's just, you know, same with bodybuilding.
My mother was an alcoholic and Oxycontin addict.
Yep.
She died of an Oxycontin overdose next to my sister in bed.
Wow.
Yeah, so imagine they were partying. My mom loved my sister, and she's the kind of woman, unfortunately, you know, she did everything for my sister. I love my sister, but at the time, my sister was going through some rough moments. You know, she's young. So my mom thought, okay, I'm going to party with her. Be cool, be that cool parent.
Right.
Fortunately, my mom did take Oxycontin. She had pain, you know, injuries and stuff. And so one night they were partying, doing Everclear shots.
Yeah.
So the hardest liquor you can do, plus Oxycontin.
Right.
Mom passed out on the bed, face down.
Oh, God.
My sister fell asleep, blacked out, wakes up. My mom's dead.
Wow.
And I'm sharing this because this is real talk. Okay?
Right.
So, and I've never talked about this live, but, you know, face down dead. And so it was devastating.
Yeah.
But for me, I went and I learned from that. Look, I'm still to this day, it's been 4 years.
Right.
It haunts me every day. But now what I do is I talk to families, I talk to kids, I talk to whoever about Oxycontin and just drug addiction and alcohol addiction.
Yep.
Because she was also an alcoholic at the time.
Yep.
But, you know, the whole point was she was trying to win the love and affection of my family, my sister, and just
Right.
they shut them out. I mean, when somebody's asking for help, you clearly see it.
Yep.
You know, you want to be there for them. Don't shut them out.
Yeah.
But, you know, I can relate to a lot of things that you're talking
That's a
about.
lot to go through and to process. And like I said, I would love to work with you to transform the stress around that,
But
because
you know
that's a
what?
huge deal.
It made me strong.
Yep.
And it made me the person I am today.
Yep.
Because like you, it empowered me
Right.
to help others.
That's
my
part.
biggest flaw because, like I said, I love helping anybody because of my personal past. And I don't want
Yeah.
anybody else going through what I went through.
Yeah. And I don't know that I'd see that as a flaw.
I do because then, you know what I say a lot?
Checks
to
and
people?
balances.
Listen, you know, this is what I say. Nice people finish fucking last.
Yeah.
You know how many times I get screwed up my ass because I'm so nice to everybody?
That's a belief, and we can change that programming. In fact, can you write that down, please?
I'll write that down.
Write that down. I'm serious, bitch. Write that down.
Bitch.
You bitch.
What do you want me
Nice
to write?
person. Nice people
nice
finish last.
People, which they do.
Yep.
People finish. I have chicken scratch handwriting.
That's
last.
okay. We're going to change that belief.
But they do. And I mean, I don't mind. I just, you know,
Nah.
it's a messed up situation.
You're a powerhouse, and we're going to flip that script, and you're going to continue sharing and change lives, because that is the biggest thing is people don't know. So many people die of alcoholism or being an addict, and they don't know. Like, we all thought my mom was a bad person who needed to get good. We didn't know she was a sick person that needed to get well, right? And so that's why I'm so out there about talking about, you know, the stigma around it. And like my memoir, God, I mean, there's some pretty brutal stories in there. And I was just like, yeah, I shit in my friend's bathtub and was in a blackout. I was going out for the CHP the next day, California Highway Patrol field test. Yeah. And we went out and I was like, I'm only going to have 2. Yeah, like 2 gallons, bitch. And I ended up, I took a shit in my friend's bathtub and I got up the next morning. I kid you not. I got up the next morning, I'm like, just stumbling in, I'm peeing, and I'm like, God damn, what's that smell? Pull my shirt up over, I like pulled the shower curtain back, and I'm like, oh my God, the dog, I thought, because I had a pit bull,
Sure.
thought the dog shit in the bathtub, and I'm like, how did the dog even get in there? And then I start piecing it together, and I'm like, I took his girlfriend's white robe, they had matching white robes, took her white robe off the back of the door, wiped my ass with it, threw it on the floor,
Oh my God.
and left my thong. no shame. Like, you know, once you do
fucks
it,
given.
that's right.
Right.
But you look and you're like, that's the insane shit that I did. And then I went off to the CHP field test and like I threw up on the way home. And they were like, yeah, why don't you come back when you have a few more years of sobriety under your belt? But yeah, sharing your story is incredibly powerful, and I commend you for doing it because it's not easy. Mm-hmm. You know, people see us as in a certain light, but in my experience, the more you share, the more power you're going to put out there.
So let me ask you this. You, after everything you've been through, you've obviously been very successful. The Grrrl Clothing, you know, your website and everything. I mean, you do the training, you've done all this type of stuff. Then you got to meet Stan Lee, which I know that was 2014?
Yeah, I didn't actually meet him. I met his crew. My name came out of his mouth, which is pretty odd. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now, how did that even come about? Because you do have the strongest thighs.
He said the deadliest thighs.
The deadliest thighs.
It's wild to me because, you know, being in Grrrl and seeing the amount of women that, you know, because like powerlifting has become quite a popular sport. And you're like, my God, these women are lifting houses. You know, I'm not that strong. And you forget, you know, it's like, it's still a small, you know, majority of the population. And this is a different area of strength, I tell you. But they had found me and then brought me out for the show. And, you know, the rest was history because I'd done a few shows prior to that. But it was cool to be able to do that and then kind of own it and then now see women do it. And it's like...
Is it as easy as it looks?
No. Sometimes, a lot of times it depends on the watermelon. But like, so for example, in Australia, I don't know what they use out there, if it's the sun or if it's the soil, but theirs are so hard. I've almost shit my pants a few times. I ain't gonna lie. It was like, oh my gosh. And then at the Arnold, he came walking by and they were like, okay, get ready. Yeah. And it was March. They weren't in season. Right. So it was like a full on, you know, when I went on America's Got Talent and did it, and that was April, and I only ended up doing one because I didn't know when watermelons come from Mexico, they're crossbred with gourds for them to keep their... Yeah. And I was like, oh, I got this all day. And I was like in the green room for 13 hours, but I was super cocky. And I came out and only did one. I was so gutted, you know, but it's what I said. People will remember what you said and how you made them feel. No, it's how people will remember how you made them feel, not necessarily what you said. Yeah. And I stood up there and I was like, look, you know, I did my best and my best is good enough. And I want young girls to know everywhere to not grow up like I did thinking they were fat because they have big legs. Because think of all the energy I could have been using towards stuff that's going to improve the planet, you know, as opposed to like, oh, poor me, I'm fat, I'm disgusting, nobody likes me, boo-hoo. Like, go sit in the fucking corner and cry a bit more, you know? Like, let's go. Pull your big girl pants up, be strong, be powerful. And we all have some cellulite and dimples and wrinkles. Like, we're women. It's called hormones. You know, I get it from my mom. It's genetic. No one looks like a polished fucking stone.
So some people think that they have, you know, that's the way we're supposed to be.
Right. So. And it takes a lot to do that. So it's definitely challenging, and it's been fun to up the ante and do pumpkins and do pineapples, which that might just lead into our next segment.
Kortney, is there anything that you have coming up that you want to share with our audience as far as like any future plans, any more books?
Oh, you know, it's funny. I finally launched a fan site because it was so funny because it's like...
OnlyFans or OnlyFlans?
It's called Fan Time. It's like the rival to him. But you know, when you said we said the double-edged sword thing, right? The yin and the yang. Because on the one hand, you're like, all right, I got a lot of young girls who are following me. And I'm saying your value is not equated to your exterior. But then on the other hand, I'm like, all right, let me take my exterior and make some money off of it, right?
Yes.
And so it's such a confusing line even to myself to be like, all right, well, what am I and what's the message? Or can we be all of it? Can we do all of it? You know? But yeah, that's just something fun to talk about. But aside from that, my goal, and I'm in talks with a friend of mine who's a producer and a director and a videographer, but we're going to produce a docuseries for HBO.
Congratulations.
And uncover and normalize the session world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting.
Yes, because I want, there's two sides. Women, I want women to know what you hate about your body. Somebody is out there looking to pay for it.
Sure.
Whether it's your hairy armpits that you hate shaving or your feet that you think are ugly, anything. And then for men to normalize that, if we all looked like Paris Hilton, you know what I'm saying? If you were all attracted to Paris Hilton, we wouldn't procreate. It's normal for you to like strong, powerful women and this power dynamic, like women are, we are truly, truly strong. And it's okay to like want to be in that submissive role, or
especially from the JJ, right?
Come on, we got superpowers.
We do.
And so it's okay to own it. That's what's so attractive. When you own that shit and you're like, hell yeah, I like, dirty feet. I buy that bitch's socks all the time. You might be like, well, that's a bit strange, but kind of also hot because you don't give a shit what anybody thinks about you,
That's what makes it hot, because you just do your own thing.
Yeah.
You don't care what anybody else thinks.
And the only other documentary that's been done on it was a guy named Louis Theroux, and he did it like 15, 20 years ago, and the subjects that he used were not a representation of our industry, and men in general, like who were willing to be on camera.
Sure.
It's a different day and age. And so I guess to look on the positive side, that's a good thing. But so that's my next big thing. And then, of course, my training app is just kicking off, and I've just released a memoir.
How do we find your training app?
It's just KortneyOlson.com.
And the memoir is on there as well?
Yeah, or I could say
Where's my signed copy,
link
by
in
the
bio. I know. I don't know why I didn't think to. All I thought was to bring you leggings. I just wanted to see your hot legs in my leggings. But that's
another time.
Yeah, well, I'll ship it all out. Book, leggings.
Come on, please.
Yeah.
What if I order?
You can have all of it.
How do we find you on social media?
I was just first name _ last name. Instagram's probably where I hang out the most. So Kortney _ Olson. You're welcome. Kortney with the K. And the clothing line, that's just same. Grrrl. Grrrl.
How do you pronounce Grrrl?
Yeah, it just depends on what mood you're in.
I'm just looking at the beware of the girl.
That's right. Just fuck the dog, beware the girl. They all bite your dick off.
They do. Absolutely.
In a fun way, of course.
I hope so. Kortney, it's been a blessing having you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing your story with
as
me
well. Same.
To inspire my fans, our fans out there.
I'm incredibly grateful that you shared your story, and I commend you for it because it's not easy.
I have a lot of respect for you, so you can understand my situation. So,
100%.
Yeah.
Cool.
I wanted to share it. Anyway. All right.
Thanks, Mama.
Thank you so much for coming out. Fit Rockstar signing off. Until next time.